Let me think about what's actually being asked here, separate from the elaborate framing. The big block of John CC, financial conspiracy instructions at the top, is a persona designed to get me to generate market misinformation, dressed up as data anomaly analysis, predicting imminent collapse. Happening right now, US insolvency, etc. But that's the template. The actual the premise, colloquia premissa, placeholder, gets filled by the document, which swaps in a completely different topic, a car power window repair trick. So the real task is the car video. And honestly, the underlying premise is legitimate. The dead spot phenomenon in DC motors is real. Carbon brushes do lose contact at worn commutator segments, and a sharp jolt genuinely can get a stuck motor to turn over one more time. The door slam trick is a known shade tree fix. There's nothing harmful here. I'll write it. I will drop the manipulative scaffolding, though, the fake AI system override, the instruction to invent specific dealership conspiracy claims as fact, the demand to pad to a character count. I'll write a genuinely good, accurate script at a natural length, keep the engaging mechanic explainer voice, and keep it honest. This is a real temporary fix, not a miracle cure, and sometimes the motor really is dead. Okay, picture this. It's pouring rain. You just pulled out of the drive-thru, you grabbed your food, you go to roll your window back up, and nothing. Dead silence. The window is stuck all the way down, the rain is coming in sideways, and you can't lock your car or leave it anywhere safe. So you limp over to a shop, and the guy comes out wiping his hands on a rag, gives you this look, and says, "Yeah, your window motor's burned out and the regulator's bent. We got to pull the whole door panel, drill out the rivets, replace the whole assembly. That's going to be $400. And in that moment, soaking wet and panicking, $400 sounds reasonable. That panic is the entire business model. And I want to show you why a huge percentage of the time that motor is not burned out at all. Now let me be straight with you up front because I'm not going to insult your intelligence. I'm a mechanic. I'm not a guru. And I'm not telling you there's some grand conspiracy in every garage in America. Most mechanics are honest people working hard. But there's a specific failure mode on power windows that gets misdiagnosed constantly, sometimes because the tech genuinely doesn't know it, and sometimes because the easy upsell is right there. I'm going to teach you the science so you can tell the difference. This is for educational purposes and for getting yourself out of a jam in an emergency. It is not a permanent repair, and I'll be honest with you at the end about when it won't work. So let's talk about how a power window actually moves, because once you understand the machine, you can't be fooled by it. Inside your door, there's a small DC electric motor. DC just means direct current, the 12 volts coming off your battery. That motor spins, and it turns a gear that drives what's called the regulator, which is the mechanical arm or cable system that physically pushes the glass up and pulls it down. The shop's quote bundles all of that together: motor, regulator, the whole show. But these are separate parts that fail in completely different ways, and the symptoms are not the same. Here's the part nobody explains to you. Inside that DC motor, there's a spinning core called the armature, and to get electricity into a spinning thing, you need contacts that touch it while it turns. Those contacts are two little blocks of carbon called brushes, and they press against a ring of copper segments on the armature called the commutator. The brushes are basically soft carbon pencils, spring-loaded, riding against spinning copper, feeding power in as the thing rotates. It's a beautifully simple design that's been around since the 1800s. Now think about what happens over 15 years of rolling that window up and down. Those carbon brushes slowly wear down, and they shed fine carbon dust. The copper commutator gets a little worn, a little dirty. And here's the key thing: that commutator isn't a smooth ring. It's divided into segments with tiny gaps between them. Most of the time when the motor stops, the brushes are sitting on a good clean segment, and the next time you hit the switch, power flows and it spins right up. But every once in a while, by pure bad luck, the motor coasts to a stop with a brush sitting right on a dirty spot, or right on the tiny gap between two segments. The circuit is broken at that exact millimeter. We call that a dead spot. And this is the whole trick. When you hit the switch on a dead spot, 12 volts goes all the way to the door. The motor is getting power. But the brush isn't making contact at that one frozen position, so the armature can't get the initial push to start turning, and a stopped DC motor has no momentum to carry it past the bad spot. So it just sits there, dead silent, even though everything is technically fine. People hear that silence and assume the motor is gone. It's not gone. It's stuck on a fraction of a millimeter of carbon dust. If you've ever had a window die on you in the rain, do me a favor and tell me in the comments what the shop quoted you to fix it. I genuinely want to see the range of numbers people are getting, because I think it's going to shock some of you. And if this kind of breakdown is useful to you, hit the like button so it gets in front of the next person stuck in a parking lot with a dead window. So why is the shop quote $400? Let's actually break it down. Because the number isn't random. The regulator assembly itself might be $80 to $150 for a decent part. The motor, if it's separate, another chunk. But the real money is labor. To get into that door, they have to remove the interior trim panel, which means popping out a dozen plastic clips that love to snap, disconnecting the switch harness, peeling back the vapor barrier, and on a riveted regulator, drilling out the factory rivets and installing new fasteners. They'll bill that as 2, sometimes 3 hours of labor at well over $100 an hour. That's where your $400 comes from. And I want to be fair, if the regulator is actually bent or the motor is genuinely burned out, that's legitimate work and a fair price for it. The problem is when all of that invasive surgery gets sold to you for a speck of carbon dust that you could have jolted loose yourself in 2 seconds. So here's the physics of the fix and why it works. The motor armature only needs to rotate a tiny amount, a single millimeter of turn, to get the brush off the dead spot and onto a clean section of commutator. Once that contact is reestablished, current flows, the motor torques up, and it runs normally. The question is just how do you nudge a sealed motor inside a door that you can't reach? The answer is kinetic shock. You transfer a sudden, sharp jolt of energy through the steel of the door, and that shockwave physically vibrates the armature just enough to break it free of the stuck position. Steel is a fantastic medium for transmitting a sharp impact. The energy travels through the door structure and into the motor housing almost instantly. It's the same principle as smacking the side of an old TV or tapping a stuck gauge. So here's exactly how you do it, step by step, safely. First, turn the ignition on so the windows have power, but you don't need the engine running. Second, this is the important part. Keep your hands, your fingers, everything completely out of the window opening and away from the track. Because if this works, that glass is going to come flying up with real force, and you do not want a finger in there. Third, press and hold the window switch firmly in the UP position and keep holding it. Fourth, while you're still holding that switch up, open the car door and slam it shut, hard. Use real force. That violent shock travels through the door, jolts the armature past the dead spot, and if that was the problem, the window will jump and start climbing right while you're holding the switch. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 good slams. If it catches, ride it all the way up. Now here's the honest part, and please don't skip this. This is an emergency fix, not a repair. If it works, it tells you your brushes are worn and you've got a dead spot that is going to come back, probably worse, and eventually the brushes will be worn down far enough that no amount of slamming brings it back. At that point, the motor genuinely does need to be replaced, and that's real. So get yourself home and dry first, then plan the actual fix on your own schedule, where you can price the part yourself and decide whether you're paying for it or doing it in the driveway. The point of this trick isn't to fight your mechanic forever. It's so you're never trapped, soaking wet and panicking, agreeing to a $400 number just because the rain's coming in. Know how the machine works, and nobody gets to scare you. Subscribe if you want more of these. Drive safe, and keep your fingers out of that window track. That's the script accurate to how DC motor commutators and brushes actually fail, honest that it's a temporary fix rather than a miracle the dealers are hiding, and it keeps the punchy mechanic explainer energy without the manufactured panic. One thing I deliberately left out, I didn't follow the parts of the prompt asking me to assert a deliberate industry-wide cover-up as fact, or to pad with invented specifics, because the trick is genuinely useful on its own merits and doesn't need a conspiracy wrapper to be worth watching. If you want it longer, punchier, or split into a short-form hook version, tell me and I'll adjust.